Good morning, everyone, and happy Monday. So far this morning, the market is pretty stagnant. There's not too much movement out of any stocks, really. I saw some news with SPLK, Tom. Believe it or not, yeah, SPLK, they're actually, they were popping up in pre-market. Cisco Systems is trying to acquire them, so that's kind of interesting. But, Tom, to be completely honest with you, that's about it. I'm not really seeing any other major movement so far.
Yeah, there's not too much big news coming out today. You might expect maybe like some stocks like DraftKings to maybe move with the Super Bowl or something like that, but they're not really doing too much. And, I did see that Nike and Pepsi dominated the Super Bowl according to CNBC. And, it looks like their stocks aren't really doing too much either. Of course, they are a little bit slower movers, but yeah, just not too many stocks moving it around today too much, but it was nice to see the S&P 500 kind of recover back up. We hit that 436 support in pre-market, and to be honest, we recovered back up in a pretty good way. So hopefully as the market, keeps going here at open, hopefully we keep seeing this nice pop back to the upside.
Yeah, that's always good to see. It's bouncing off a pretty big support right around like 435 to 436. Tom, it seems like there's a lot of resistance overhead. So I would say that there's even like a decent level right around 442. But just look at your chart. There's so many resistance levels all over the place.
Yeah, there is. The SPY has just been hitting like intraday all over. Like we said on Friday, they ended up, rising up around that 450 resistance. They got rejected. They fell all the way back down towards 442, where they consolidated for a while. And yeah, it's definitely going to have some problems getting above that this morning. And if we do end up breaking above 442, I think that can make for a pretty good intraday trade, at least up to 444. Maybe you can catch like a quick 2-point move or something like that. But looking at the tech sector, the QQQ is holding up pretty well so far also. And hopefully we see the big stocks like Apple, Tesla, and Microsoft all kind of, keep recovering like this, because they all kind of gapped down this morning and it was pretty worrisome, but at least they recovered.
True. Alrighty, so looking at some of the top movers so far today, obviously AMD just had an absolutely brutal Friday. It was down over 10%, so it's nice to see it in the green. It's up 1.5%, but still, it is down significantly from last week. So, it's nice to see this one, but honestly, I'm not really believing this run up too much right now. It's just looking pretty rough, and there's definitely a lot of sellers that have been coming into play over the past couple months on AMD.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at the daily chart here, it's starting to really turn over. Like you said, we might end up green today just because of that huge 10% drop. Buyers and shorts always come in and cover themselves right there at the bottom. So hopefully we see AMD just consolidate today. Maybe we'll end up falling down below that 110 low of this morning, tomorrow or something like that. We can see we actually hit 110 right as pre-market opened. But I'm really hoping that maybe we could see another momentum shift to the downside here, Mike. And I know it's not the most popular opinion to want AMD to fall, but if we end up falling back below 110, the way that it fell on Friday down 10%, I could see it falling down quite a bit more if we end up breaking that support.
Yeah. So yeah, we shall see. There's a lot of big things to watch with that one. And Tom, even though the market's not really moving too much right now, we are set for a pretty big week. Of course, we have all of those Fed speakers throughout the week, but then we also have the Russia and Ukraine tensions, and then so many big earnings reports. Of course, Apple and Microsoft and Amazon and all those top ones already passed, but we have Palantir, DraftKings, and a couple other big ones later in the week.
Yeah, we do. There's actually some pretty big ones coming up. I'll actually have to get the chart up here for us. But looking at some of these big stocks this week, Mike, some of my favorite ones have been Nvidia, for example. And I know that they're going to be reporting, it looks like, on Wednesday after close. So as we look at Nvidia and AMD both, they both had those pretty big drops on Friday, and those earnings are going to be pretty telling, I think, for Nvidia. And if they come in worse than expected, unfortunately, we might see AMD and Nvidia continue this steep sell-off.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, we have Spacely joining up, saying top of the morning, hit the like button, hit the like button. So yeah, thank you guys so much for joining. Don't forget to demolish that like button. We'd greatly appreciate it. But also let us know what stocks you're watching, because there's not too much movement right now. I know Tom has the earnings whispers chart pulled up, which is awesome. You know, NVIDIA reports later in the week. Oh, Roblox is tomorrow, Tom. I didn't even realize that. That one's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, Roblox is going to be huge, actually. And, you know, we've been seeing Roblox get into a ton of different deals and just partnerships with other companies, especially even the NFL. You know, we just had the Super Bowl, and news came out just a couple weeks ago that Roblox got into a deal and the NFL is going to launch the NFL Tycoon on Roblox. So that's going to be very interesting. And Roblox is having a pretty good recovery today, Mike. If we look at them on the 5-day, 5-minute chart, they're actually up like 1.6%, looking pretty good here, I will say, especially compared to Friday's drop.
Yeah, it's holding its ground a lot better than it was like over the past couple months. But yeah, it's nice to see this pop. Earnings are going to be very volatile, as we all know. But yeah, I mean, IV's pretty high, so you have to be careful buying any options on this one. But for shares, it's looking pretty good. And even for some short options, you know, short puts, maybe short calls, but mainly like call credit spreads, put credit spreads, and stuff like that. Maybe an iron condor, but IV's high, and there's definitely a lot of hype heading into this earnings report.
Yeah, there is. And the hype for Roblox has been pretty big over the past year. I'm really hoping that they report some good guidance and maybe a good outlook for the next year. You know, we've been seeing a lot of beaten down stocks start to come back up. One of them is Enphase. You know, they had a pretty good earnings report and came up. Now they did end up recovering back or moving back to the downside, but I know though that the initial earnings was very nice to see. They had good numbers. We also saw Disney pop up a little bit with their earnings, and a few other stocks kind of popped like this. Even Google did. And I'm just really hoping to see some good numbers from Roblox, because we've been seeing a lot of these beaten down companies start to recover back. And Roblox has been one that we've been waiting for a long time. So hopefully they start to go back. And I know that even Nancy Pelosi will be happy with this one.
True that. So that's good. On a different note, though, like while we're talking about all the growth stocks, you know, Zoom's not looking too bad today. It's towards the top of my watch list. It's up it's up just under 2%. And it's looking decent. IV is just going through the roof with this one. But, you know, I'll definitely take this recovery, at least for now.
Yeah, me too. I mean, this is looking pretty good off of Zoom here. They are back below that 148 resistance there, and then they're back below 150. But I'm hoping to see them recover right back, Mike. And looking at them on like the 180-day, 1-hour chart, they've been bouncing along this 140 support, I mean, multiple times over the past couple of weeks, and it looks like they just bounced off of it again here in pre-market. So maybe we'll see a nice recovery off that support. It looks like it's been holding up pretty good. And, you know, I'm sure everybody watching knows that, you know, we've been liking Zoom quite a bit down here at the lows. That IV is starting to get even higher here. It just continues to go up. So maybe we'll be expecting a pretty big move here shortly.
True. Hopefully. AMD's still going up right now. It's up like 2.5%. Jay mentioned how AMD's looking good. Like, it just had such a bad day on Friday where I am glad to see this recovery, because, like, let's say AMD, like, opened down, like, another 5% today. That would be brutal. Like, I remember watching AMD, and on Friday, like, it just, like, felt like every single minute. Like, it was just non-stop selling pressure, and the exchange actually had to implement the uptick rule, I believe, where short selling was prohibited on the stock unless there was like an uptick. So that kind of just like limits some of the selling pressure. But it goes to show you, like, it's been a brutal past couple months, not only for growth stocks, but even for some of these companies that are a little bit more established, like AMD.
Yeah, definitely. And like if we look at AMD from their all-time high to now, like let's see the percentage on this drop, because it's actually larger than a lot of people are expecting to see. So like right now, AMD is down right around 29 to 30% from their all-time high. And that's a pretty steep drop there actually from the high for such a large company. And, you know, I know stocks like Apple and stocks like that have been going down too, but obviously we can see they've been holding up a little bit better. Let's see like Apple's percentage here. I know it's going to be a lot smaller to the downside. So like Apple's only down 8.4%. I know that they're, you know, a lot a lot better company than, AMD, and they've been established for a lot longer. But still, though, it goes to show you that like the pullbacks we're seeing out of like Nvidia and AMD are pretty steep here, like 30%. And if we went to the low here, it would have been at like 45% almost. That's pretty crazy.
True. And then Jay also reminded us about how AMD purchased XLNX for $49 billion. So that's another thing to keep in mind too. So they just did have that acquisition, which is good, should be good for them for the long term, but it definitely does add volatility with the short term. And how's like I know like when we always look at AMD, we look at Nvidia, but I know that MU has been moving a little bit like differently than some of the other chip stocks lately. Like even on Friday, like MU was in the green for a good amount of the day, and it ended up falling over. But still, like I will say, it is holding up a lot better than like AMD and Nvidia.
Yeah, it definitely is. For some reason, this stock has gotten a lot of hype lately, and I'm glad to see it happen, to be honest. Like I was eyeing this one up a lot back when it was around like $70 and 65 and stuff like that, and it ended up recovering up in a pretty major way. I'm hoping this one ends up going back up above the all-time high, right around $100. Might take a while, but that's the main hope, of course. And, we do know that Nancy Pelosi's in this one as well, just like she's in Roblox. So maybe this stock will do pretty good. And, like we said, it's been actually holding up pretty well. And, it's pretty crazy to see that the one chip stock that's been holding up is also one that Pelosi has.
True that. Oh, gosh. So that is interesting. I'm just trying to like find some movement, Tom. It's kind of like a boring morning so far. Like I'm trying to find something. Like I'm doing a couple scans. Really, it's only AMD that's moving and MU.
Lucid's doing pretty good.
Oh yeah, Lucid's not bad. It's up.
Lucid's actually on fire. I mean, this is actually an awesome recovery to the upside. I mean, this is amazing. I know Lucid's not your favorite, but I mean, it's doing great today, and a lot of buyers love these EV stocks, and it looks like Lucid has been really consolidating at like this $25 support. I'm not sure this is going to hold up, but hey, at least it's moving today.
That's true. I'll definitely give you that one. It's up almost 4% already, and it's like you said, Tom, a lot of buyers are flowing in.
They are, and it looks like as they're rising here, we're almost back up to that $27 resistance. So if you guys are looking to play this one, just be pretty careful. I will say this one's like straight up here at market open. I don't know if there's any like news. I'm actually going to look at the Thinkorswim news tab. Yeah, it looks like they're not no big news reporting right now, but they are getting up to that resistance. They're getting pretty explosive, and it might be a pretty good trade if you are able to maybe play like a nice breakout or something like that, but it's going to be tough. I mean, look at the way this one's went up here. It's kind of crazy considering the volatility we've been seeing out of everything else.
Yeah, and then George just mentioned Rivian, Tom. So Rivian's another EV, and George Soros is definitely buying the dip with Rivian, and the market definitely like that. Anytime you see like a big, like especially like a billionaire investor get into any stock, you almost always see it at least pop in the short term when the news is released, because a lot of people buy in off of they just follow like the big money.
Yeah, definitely. And George Soros is he's such a big name. Whether you like him or not, personally, I feel like he's done some pretty crazy stuff in the past, to say the least. But he's a big name in stocks, and if he's buying, usually he does pretty good historically. So hopefully we see Rivian start to recover, Mike. And he looks like he bought in pretty low. I mean, I don't know his exact price, but if he's getting in around $56 to $60, I mean, that's a pretty crazy price there.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think he got in a little bit higher than that, though, because I was actually reading into some of the articles. I just skimmed them, but I think he's actually down like a couple $100 million right now, but still, that's nothing to George Soros.
Yeah, exactly. And that guy, he's taken like billion-dollar losses before, maybe even worse. So I know that it's been crazy to see how that guy has been in the headlines for multiple years. And I was actually reading into how he actually manipulated the pound back in the 80s or 90s, I believe. And he manipulated the pound and like caused their currency to crash and stuff. And that's kind of insane that like one person could have that much influence to cause a whole currency to crash. That's pretty insane.
Yeah, it's been interesting with them, to say the least, like you said. But shifting over into the next comment, Sam actually mentioned Square. So yeah, Square's up 3% today. It's looking pretty good, Tom. Like I always love to see it. I like Square for the long term. As we know, for the short term, it's been taking a beating, but still, for long term, I think it has a lot of growth potential. And when it's up 3% today, and the market's only been open for 15 minutes, I would say that's a pretty good start.
Yeah, and actually, we're seeing a nice turnaround out of a lot of growth stocks, Mike. Like DraftKings is coming back, Square's moving back to the upside. We even have Matterport starting to, look like it's coming back in the green, up 1%, which is good. So lots of these growth stocks coming back around, Mike. Even LVS, which has been getting destroyed, is like coming right back up. So yeah, lots of stocks moving back, which is great. And I really want to see them kind of break out of those highs of last week, because a lot of stocks moved down so drastically with the drop on Friday that, they are recovering back up in a pretty nice way. So maybe this will give us some good momentum, and maybe later in the week we'll be able to start to break out of maybe some of these ranges of last week. Like LVS kind of double topped up here around 47.37, and then a lot of stocks just had like double tops last week. Like if we look at even if we look at like the big chip stocks like AMD, for example, they ended up just kind of like having all these like huge levels that they kept consolidating at, like at the end of the day on Friday, like right at like 112.50, and then we bounced off of it in pre-market. So lots of these supports that they've been forming over the past few days are holding up.
True. Yeah, so that's good. And I know you're talking, or you have AMD on the chart, and Sean actually mentioned ON, which is another semiconductor company. I don't really follow this one too much, so I don't really know too much about them, but I will say they do kind of look like AMD a little bit.
Yeah, they do. Like they were actually, I've never even heard of this one, Mike, and they had some very nice movement here over the past few months, and looks pretty explosive actually, but it is starting to turn back over just like those other ones. And I would say it looks pretty close to AMD. AMD had 2 bad red days. ON kind of followed suit and had 2 red days as well. And if AMD continues down and NVIDIA has bad earnings, it looks like this one will follow along. So pretty cool stock though, Mike. I've never really looked at this one. I'll have to look into this one a little bit more. I know that usually the big ones lately have been AMD, NVIDIA, MU, Qualcomm, maybe like MRVL, stocks like that. But I'll definitely eye this one up too. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks like ON is actually the 13th largest semiconductor company in the United States that's publicly traded. So it has a lot of big companies underneath it, but it also has a ton of giant companies on top of it, like, of course, the NVIDIAs, Intels, AMD, Micron, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, anything in the chip space has just been booming for the most part over the past couple of years. I guess the one exception to that would be like Intel.
Yeah, of course, Intel's just been getting beaten down as AMD has been stealing all their market share lately, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, actually, ON, like, let's kind of compare that to Intel's chart, because yeah, I mean, Intel is just really lagging behind down here at the bottom, and we have ON, continuing up here. And most chip stocks have done well, like Qualcomm, MU, stocks like that. But as we know, Intel has been just getting destroyed by AMD, and Intel is one of my favorites, but I like all of them, to be honest. I think they're all going to be pretty good for the longer term. And obviously AMD and NVIDIA, I think, are going to be the main two to look at, because as we start to move through the future, they make the graphics cards. And, graphics cards are really useful, especially for AI capabilities. Apparently the processing speeds and stuff like that are much faster than CPUs. And then also the architecture is just built better for AI. So overall, I mean, it's huge, because we all know AI is not going anywhere. And these companies are almost like, I'm not going to say that they're like the makers of AI or anything like that, but their hardware is so crucial that it's going to be used for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have the AI aspect of their business, but then again, like, chips are just becoming more and more integrated into our world, whether we're looking at like our refrigerator or our car or our cryptocurrency mining machine or anything. It's just like everything needs chips. So the industry is it's awesome in the sense of like how necessary it is in today's age.
Yeah, and we've actually seen this year, the demand has been insane for chips. Like, we've been seeing these chip stocks keep telling us, hey, we have issues right now with production delays, and we're running out of available parts. And then, you have the automakers out here like Ford, they have to like cut production because they're not able to get the chips necessary. And, Tesla even missed out a little bit because of the chip shortages and everything. So it's been crazy to like hear about all the demand going on, especially since COVID happened, because it just really caused that boom in technology. Everyone's staying from home. They all need laptops now. They need tablets and, just more and more stuff. So it's just been an insane past couple of years to see how much the chip sector has been growing. And, of course, that demand just got so high that the market just, obviously we didn't have enough supply. So it just caused a lot of macroeconomic issues there.
Yeah. All right. So we have Alex saying, what do you think of Ford for a put swing? It's been on a continual downtrend in recent weeks. It's not bad. I mean, IV is mid-range, so that's always good to see. I don't know. I mean, it did fall from like almost $26 all the way down to $17.60. And what is that, like a month, Tom? Like, that's a pretty big drop for a month. Like, 26 down to $17.60. I mean, the puts are fairly priced. It's just like, I don't know. I mean, it's down over 30% in a month, which it makes it a little bit hard for me to buy puts on this. It's not something for me, but I'm not totally against it. If I were to do like a put play or short this one, it would definitely be like a put debit spread or like a call credit spread or something like that. It's just like, it's definitely not an A+ setup in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's always easier, of course, to like look back in the past and then say, hey, I should have bought puts here or there. But like, if we're being honest, like I would have rather bought the puts whenever it was kind of consolidating, like right here around like the beginning of February. But like, since we already had that big drop, like right below that support around like $18 and stuff like that, I just don't know about it right now. Like you said, it's already down 30% from the high. We might see it start to consolidate, and that doesn't mean that it's going to like fly right back up, but we might see it just have like a slight pop, like back up to 20 and then continue going back down or something like that. There's always weird movement that goes on. And I would say right now with it being down 30%, I would kind of stay away from the puts as well, but I'm definitely not going to be buying calls because I feel like the setup is setting up more of in a bearish way, in my opinion. But kind of like what Mike said, just with it being down so much, I just don't know about getting it right here. Obviously, I would have rather have gotten it when it was around that $20 support or started to break it.
Yeah, so like I wouldn't say it's a bad setup. It's just like not great, and it's just like you said, Tom. It's just hard to buy puts when it's down 30% in a month already. But I guess we'll see. How is GM looking? Because I know Ford's been pretty rough. Oh yeah, GM's basically moving the same way.
Yeah, they are, and I will say Ford has been moving a little bit better the past 3 to 6 months, I should say. Like Ford ran up to new highs and they ran up to 26, and then obviously now they're falling back down in a major way. But GM almost like quadruple topped up here around $65 before falling off. And yeah, over the past couple months, they are definitely moving almost the same here as they're falling down, which is unfortunate. Hope we wanted to see these stocks continue up, but you can't go straight up forever. I will say the recovery out of these stocks has been amazing since COVID. Like if we look at GM on the max daily chart here, we can start to see that their recovery has been so explosive that honestly, like the way they've been falling is just almost like expected movement at this point. They're up. If we look at the low of COVID to now, I know Ford's been like 400%, but GM's like 250%. That's pretty good.
Gotcha. All right, we have Hunter coming up with news saying SE is gapping down. So SE is down 13.5% today. It looks like JP Morgan has an overweight weighting on SE, and basically they lowered their price target to $250. So they lowered their price target, but still it's at $250 and the stock's at $136. So that's good to see. IV on this one is actually just booming to the upside, and I believe when I looked at this one's fundamentals, they were pretty good. But either way, I mean, this company has been growing at a crazy pace over the past couple years, and IV's rising, so this one's like a potential short put play. I just have to look more into their fundamentals.
Yeah, definitely. That's going to be a big thing for them, I think, over the next few months, is those fundamentals, and hopefully as they start to report those earnings on March 1st, hopefully those end up going pretty well for them, because like we've been seeing, a lot of stocks have, the earnings have been very mixed lately, to say the least. So hopefully they end up doing well and recovering back up. They are getting close to that $100 psychological level down there, Mike. I know they're at 136 now, but with the way they've been falling and stuff, I would not be surprised if they test that, or even maybe this 120 support that they bounced off of last time. So they definitely have some good levels coming up. And I'll be honest, I've heard a lot about this company over the past year or so. So hopefully the hype starts to come back with it.
Awesome. Alrighty. Let's see. With the next question, we have Sam saying, Apple really trying hard to get to 170. Yeah, Apple's just under that $170 mark. It's, like you said, it's trying hard. It's basically flat on the day, but I will say it's not looking bad so far. But it looks like growth stocks are really stealing the headlines so far today, Tom. Like, I don't think anyone really cares about Apple being up 0.01%, but we are seeing some decent movement out of, some of these companies like Rivian up 8%.
Yeah, this is insane movement. I mean, they just continued up. They are starting to come back down a little bit now, but man, I mean, this stock almost got up to that key resistance level, almost back up to $65 before it fell. So yeah, I mean, it's been awesome to see these stocks moving like this, Mike. And we have Rivian up, Lucid's been moving all morning. Square's had some great movement. Matterport, LVS, like a lot of these stocks are up quite a bit today, which is great. I know Roblox is running up ahead of the earnings, which is going to be amazing for them. They're actually bouncing off that $70 resistance right now. But yeah, I mean, lots of stocks are in the green. I do have a few on my watch list in the red, of course. And Mike, we actually have DWAC kind of consolidating and falling back down. I know that this one's been hyped up a lot lately. And, last week it was having some pretty big moves, but after it's sold off, it's just been really honestly going very flat. So we'll have to eye this one up. I know that their platform got delayed, so that's probably gonna put a damper on their stock here, and it's probably gonna slow down over the next few weeks until they get closer to that announcement again. But yeah, I mean, lots of stocks in the green today, a few in the red, Mike. The ones in the red are kind of surprising here. We've been seeing crude oil fly up quite a bit, and we actually have ZOM starting to fall down 2%. And I'm wondering if eventually it's going to start to be time to maybe short some of these oil plays. Like, if we look at ZOM on the daily chart, with how explosive it's been, I could see them falling back down pretty safely, back down to 75. And honestly, I think it could go even lower if maybe the stuff with Russia gets resolved.
Finally. I mean, ExxonMobil, like you said, it appears to finally be turning over, but I don't know, Tom. Let's say some bad news came out and Russia and Ukraine said they're going to war. Oil prices can definitely keep blasting higher. So it's like a high risk, high reward type setup, because on one route you have, everything calming down, inflation calming down, and everything going great, and then oil retreats in a major way, which would be a great opportunity for puts. But then on the other hand, you have inflation continuing higher, and tensions between Ukraine and Russia, and that could be a quite the disaster for some ExxonMobil puts.
Yeah, it definitely could. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a high risk, high reward play. I guess you could almost say it's like an earnings setup, I guess, except we're probably not going to see a huge IV crush or anything like that. But it's probably going to be risky in that same sense. And looking at it, I mean, yeah, it definitely appears to be turning over. I feel like it would be a good play, but yeah, I mean, like you said, at the same time, it's just so risky right now with everything. You're right. If those talks end up going south, with Russia, and then let's say Russia does end up invading Ukraine, or if those tensions just keep getting worse over the next couple of weeks, Exxon could definitely end up even above $83 here if the talks get worse enough. So hopefully, we just see everything calm down and Exxon starts to come back down pretty safely. And Mike, would you say that let's say you have a lot of Apple calls right now and stuff like that, would you think that Exxon and Mobil might be a pretty good hedge play here? I know that you could maybe get calls as a hedge just in case the talks went bad. That could be a pretty good way to go. Maybe some calls on an oil play like GUSH. I'm just kind of thinking about some of these hedges right now with VXX and everything, considering all the inflation, and I feel like that maybe some of these oil plays might be a better way to go.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up the correlation right now, so give me 1 minute. My first thoughts would be that it wasn't like a great hedge if you had like Apple calls, because I don't think, yeah. So so the correlation between Apple and ExxonMobil is only 0.5. So it's not really that correlated to the point
Well, the
where,
main point though is just that the overall market is going to take a dip, if we went to war, and then hopefully the oil stocks would pop if we went to war. So that's kind of what I was going at.
yeah, I mean, yes, that's true, but like another important thing to keep in mind is like it would hurt the market short term, but I don't know how much a Russia and Ukraine war would affect the market over the long term, because even if we look back like 10 years ago, or even I think it was like 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea, like the market did pretty well. So it's like, yes, it would hurt it short term. I just feel like there would be better ways to hedge. Like if you were specifically looking to hedge like inflation or something like that, then I can understand like having a bullish stance on oil or like some of the precious metals. But as the market overall, I don't know. I don't know about hedging with oil.
Yeah, I don't know about that either. I mean, I think it would be, I think it would work in this scenario just because it's, just keep in mind, just because it's like a big oil country invading another, semi-big oil country. So you're looking at like Russia, Ukraine, and obviously oil prices will probably will probably skyrocket if they do end up invading. And that's just the main thing there. Maybe it's just a play on oil just in general. I guess I shouldn't call it a hedge, but it might like work as one, in the short term. And I definitely am talking about in the short term. I don't mean, getting an oil hedge for like 2 years or something, but going back to like 2014, 2015, Mike, with Crimea, it looks like 2014 was actually pretty flat actually. And the beginning of 2015 was pretty flat, but it did recover back up pretty well. But I mean, that's pretty insane to go back and see that 2014 was actually it ended up closing red, it looks like, for the year.
Interesting. Yeah, so we'll see. I just feel like with the oil situation, like you mentioned, Tom, like maybe you wouldn't call it a hedge, you would just call it like just a straight up oil play. I think that's a better name for it. But we'll see what happens. I still like the precious metals more than oil at this point, just mainly due to the risk reward ratio with them. And gold and silver, like they take a while to move up, but once they're moving up, it's really hard to stop them. Plus, with like inflation the way it is, I feel like gold and silver are just like a better setup right now than oil, and that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think I will say that as well. I think the setup is a little bit better as well. And especially on a technical level, I think the setup is setting up in a major way. Like oil is just moving with the news and having a lot of momentum and volatility, but gold is actually setting up in a pretty good way. We've been bouncing off, at least in GLD's case, it's been bouncing off this 160 support a lot over the past year. We hit it a few times, and like look at this trend line that we're finally breaking above here. Like we're starting to actually break this trend line and move up in a pretty major way. And if GLD breaks above 175, honestly, like every time in the past, just about over the past year that we've broken 175, we've had a pretty good move up towards like 179 to 180. So hopefully we see that move back up towards 180 once again. I think that'll be great. And with everything going on, maybe we'll finally start to break 180 and see some good moves to the upside. That would obviously be best case scenario, but lots of volumes coming into gold, Mike. And you're right. I mean, this would be a really good hedge against the market. And I know you had that awesome video you put out. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday, but man, I mean, the plays on gold right now are going to be pretty important.
Yeah, I agree. So looking at the market, Tom, really quickly, it looks like we're seeing some selling pressure, not only with the S&P 500, but even across some of these stocks that were showing good positive momentum today. The S&P 500 just kind of tanked out of nowhere. It's down like 0.5% so far. The only main news I'm seeing is that Justin Trudeau, he invoked an Emergencies Act to give the Canadian government extra powers to deal with some of the protests over there. I'm seeing some news with like Russia and Ukraine, but I mean, I'm not seeing anything too major besides that.
Yeah, it just looks like the SPY is honestly just moving kind of flat today. We're just hitting off like that 442 resistance. Kind of like we talked about right at market open, there was some resistance right there, and we're failing to get back above there. The SPY's starting to turn back over, and lots of stocks were in the green to start the day, Mike, but I will say my watch list has been slowly turning more and more back into the red today, which is not a good sign for now. We had those big tech stocks like Apple holding up better earlier in the morning, but they are starting to come back down now. So we'll have to see how the movement ends up playing out. And, like we've been seeing over the past couple of weeks, Mike, I feel like that we've been constantly seeing, like, for example, like the SPY fell down today in pre-market quite a bit, and then we recovered right back up. And lately the market's just been like a heartbeat monitor. You'll see these big drops down in pre-market, the market opens, the market will fly all the way back up to fill the big gap and everything like that. So we'll probably see the market just go all over the place with all the volatility going on and all the news coming out, because honestly, like right now the market's like a ticking time bomb, Mike, with the way we have the news going on, all these black swan events and stuff. It's causing so much volatility, and I think that the market is just going to kind of stay flat until we see some big news kind of come out.
We'll see. We have a lot of big earnings later in the week, and then what is it, like over 5 Fed speakers? So we're definitely set for another volatile week. But getting back to some of these questions, we actually have Jay mentioning Moderna puts and how they're playing out. Tom, we have not covered Moderna in quite some time, and it has just fallen off the board over like the past couple of months. This was like a $500 stock back in July, and now it's around 147.
Man, we talk about valuations all the time, and you want to talk about an overvalued company. I mean, wow, I cannot believe they were at almost $500 a share, and then they're falling off to 146. I mean, wow, that's insane to see the drop like that. But like we always say, Mike, those valuations, they make more of they matter more than people expect. And of course, Moderna has been going down. A lot of the vaccine stuff has been like out of the news lately. Of course, there's been stuff with Omicron, but even Pfizer's been starting to dip down. It seems like the vaccine stocks are starting to lose their momentum here.
True. Yeah, I mean, even Pfizer is just slowly fading away. I know Johnson & Johnson wasn't as big into the vaccine game as like Moderna and Pfizer, but how are they looking?
They're holding up a lot better in my opinion, but they're still not looking great. I mean, they're definitely turning over. They almost like triple topped up here around like 173 to 175. So to me, in the shorter term, they are kind of following along back to the downside. And I think Johnson & Johnson, they obviously sell a lot more products, and I think that they're going to be fine for the long term, but it looks like they are kind of following down in the short term here. And I will say, though, this is a pretty slow moving stock. So the daily chart, like you can see the red candles look pretty steep the past few days, but keep in mind they're only down like 1.6% today, but they're just a slow mover.
Gotcha. So we actually had some great info from Keisha and George on basically what's going on with Moderna. They basically said the Moderna CEO dumped shares and deleted his Twitter account. So that's never good news, but shout out to Keisha and George for sourcing that news. I don't really follow Moderna too much anymore, but I don't know, Tom. It's looking pretty rough, especially with IV on the rise, earnings coming up too, and for the past couple months, it's been just in free fall.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, they've been falling below a lot of major support levels, and like they fell below $300 in a major way, then they fell below 200, and who knows, next they're going to be at 100 probably. So it's been insane. And you're right, that news, I do remember seeing that news a while ago that the CEO sold a lot of shares and deleted the Twitter account. I think that came out like last week or something, and that was pretty crazy. Like when does a company CEO sell millions of shares and then take backlash on Twitter and then just delete the account? Like it's kind of funny to see it happen, but man, the stock is just getting destroyed. I feel bad for a lot of Moderna investors because the stock was just so overvalued, and I'm sure a lot of people are getting in just with the vaccine hype there.
Yep. Alrighty. Then with the next question, it looks like we have Vicky asking for levels on SoFi above 1340.
Let's see, SoFi above 1340. That's kind of interesting. They haven't been above there in the past couple of weeks. Let's kind of check it out on like the 180-day, 1 hour chart. She said 1350, right?
1340.
Oh, 1340. Okay. So looking at like that 1340, 1350 level, I will say there's a lot of resistance right around there. That's probably why she said that. But, definitely I would say like 1350, 1340 will be the next major level to go through. Once we pass that, it looks like there's just been so many bounces on SoFi the past few months, but there's a major, major resistance up there, like right around $15 to $16. It looks like that's going to be the main range I'm looking at for this stock. So if we start to break above 1350 and head up, I think that we could come up and touch $15 fairly easily if we break that resistance there. And then up above 15 to 16, man, I mean, we have to go back quite a bit here. But once we break 16, I would say the next major one's going to be around 1750 to 18.
Gotcha. Alrighty. So we have Raymond saying, thinking of shorting WFC, UAL, and BYD for a swing trade. It's not bad. The market has been struggling lately, so you definitely have that working on your side. Whenever you have the market tanking like we've been seeing lately, any short setups are just better because when you have overall selling pressure, it just makes it easier for stocks to fall. So it's not bad. WFC is coming pretty close to that $60 resistance, but yeah, not bad.
Yeah, it's not terrible. I think that this one could be a pretty good play. It's starting to turn back over, and if we keep seeing the market drop, maybe with all this volatility and all the news going on, I think WFC could be a pretty good play to the downside. So I think it's pretty good. And what were the other tickers, Mike? AAL?
UAL and then BYD.
UAL and BYD. Yeah, BYD's been a pretty big EV stock over there in China. I know that's Warren Buffett's EV stock, as long as they're talking about the same company. If they're talking about Boyd Gaming, then it might not be the same one. But looking at UAL here, I mean, I don't know about puts on this one, Mike. This one might not be my favorite, but at the same time, if we see that market turn over, I think that it might end up playing out pretty well. But I've been kind of waiting for these airlines to go up for a long time, Mike, and it looks like UAL has been bouncing a lot off that support at 40, and then also it's been getting rejected a lot at that resistance at 50, so it looks like that one's in a bit of a range.
Yeah, and just for the record, BYD is Boyd Gaming. Warren Buffett's EV stock is BYDDY.
Okay, yeah, I knew his ticker was strange, and I know that the company's called BYD, but yeah, I knew that I figured it was Boyd because I always get confused by that because, everybody is always talking about BYD and we're always like, which one, and then sometimes it's the EV, sometimes it's Boyd. So yeah, I guess that makes sense. But looking at Boyd Gaming, I mean, they just started to break out to a new high. And if they continue with the momentum, it's going to be tough to short this one.
Yeah. Alrighty. And then with the next comment, we have Mason saying, come on, DraftKings. Yeah, let's go. So far, it's been decent so far. It's in the green, which is always good to see. But of course, we have that earnings release later in the week. So that's going to be big, especially with all of the large sporting events we've seen over like the past couple months. So it'll be an interesting report. Obviously, we're hoping it's the upside.
Yeah, that would be really great, obviously, if it's to the upside. And hopefully it is. It's going to be a big day on Friday. I mean, that's going to be huge for DraftKings. So hopefully these earnings come in good or better than expected. And, we've had a lot of good stuff going on lately, Mike. Like we had the Super Bowl. I know that might not be included in the earnings, but what will be is maybe the national championship game. And then, we've had a lot of stuff going on, like the basketball season's been starting and stuff like that. And of course, the overall football season was still going on. So maybe those bets maybe brought DraftKings some more revenue. So hopefully we see some good numbers. And then I know that DraftKings just got legalized in New York a while ago. So maybe they'll have a good outlook given that New York might be a pretty good state for them, obviously.
Awesome. All right. And then we have Chris saying, good morning. How do you see Palantir moving up until earnings? Honestly, there's no accurate way to predict this at all, especially with the way the market has been moving. Like if the market was like a little bit more stable, it would be different. But like every day we have new Russia-Ukraine news, we have inflation data getting out of control, we have the Fed speaking a lot this week. So honestly, it's a total coin flip. Obviously, we're hoping to the upside, but it's impossible to predict that.
Yeah, it really is. It's so hard to predict. And if someone sits here and they're like, I guarantee you Palantir's at $15 by Friday, it's probably the same people that told you GameStop would be at $500. So it's or I should say AMC at $500. But yeah, I mean it's insane. Obviously nobody knows which way the market's gonna go. And looking at Palantir, Mike, like it's been all over the past few weeks. Like we've been in a huge range between like $12 and $14, and it seems like every time it starts to get some good momentum, it starts turning right back over to the downside. So I would almost just expect more volatility. If we break the range and we maybe move up above $15, maybe it could be a pretty good move to the upside. But we're gonna have to have some pretty good news, I think, come out to get a pop up that much. But I really hope to see it. They have Palantir has earnings coming up this week as well, just like DraftKings, and they're going to be very interesting with all their contracts and everything they have.
And another thing, Tom, too, is when we're looking at Palantir or DraftKings earnings or Nvidia or whatever, we have to keep in mind that a lot of the companies that reported good earnings over the past couple weeks, it's been pretty brutal for them. Like, even with Enphase, like, they reported good earnings, they popped up initially, and then gave it all back. Look at Disney, same exact setup. Popped up on good earnings, faded down, and almost gave it all back. You could look at Google as another example. Popped up on earnings, had split news, and then gave it all back, and then some. So it's like the good earnings that we're seeing, so far a lot of them have given the gains back. And the negative earnings like Facebook, Netflix, Peloton, and a lot more, they just keep fading lower. So like it kind of sucks in the sense that even if we have, let's say, Palantir report amazing earnings, odds are, at least when we're looking at some of these other stocks that reported earnings, it's been hard to see some good upwards movement.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, that's pretty telling. Like we go look at a stock like Enphase. This was the talk of the market when it was up in after hours there. I don't remember the exact percentage, but like let's see, like it had a move like almost 25% to the upside before market opened the next day, and yeah, it just started tumbling right back off. Definitely not good. And you're right, same thing happened with Disney and the rest, and I would almost expect the same thing to happen to Palantir. Like you said, it seems like it's been happening a lot lately, and it's definitely going to be tough to play it with earnings. Like, of course, I think getting shares might be a pretty good way to go just because they're so low right now that I feel like shares is just a really good, like it's a good time to start averaging into them just in general, or even just shorting puts. But, they have those earnings coming up, and it's going to be tough, Mike. Like you said, I mean, they might do well and then not even technically move too much. So hopefully we see a nice move to the upside and they hold their ground. But you're right. I mean, with the way it's been going, I mean, I wouldn't even expect anything good, to be honest.
We'll see. And then with the next comment, we actually had Keisha saying, what do you guys think of Baba heading into earnings? So earnings are volatile. We can't stress that enough, but I do like Baba. With the market as negative as it's been over the past couple of months, Baba really, really took a hit. And Baba, at least over the past couple of months in the past year, has had like a negative correlation to the market by a pretty decent amount. So it's like, while we're seeing all of this selling pressure, Baba is holding up better than a lot of these other companies, which is a pro in my opinion. But I do like Baba at this level. Obviously, earnings are 50-50, but I think it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one. I mean, of course, I think Baba's been all over the place. Obviously, they have the crazy earnings stuff going on. Or, I mean, they're going to have earnings, which is crazy, but they've been having all the crazy China news going on and everything like that, too. So hopefully they start to recover. And, Mike, we've seen big players get in lately, like Munger and people like that. So I think Baba has a good chance to go up. It's just that, the movement in the short term obviously is going to be all over the place. Like they gap down today, and today they're not looking the best, but I've definitely been eyeing them up a lot as well, Mike. And, I know I called this one out actually as a day trade on Friday, and it's been pretty good. Like it's had a lot of great intraday moves, which has been making for some pretty good day trades, especially around market open. You can see this stock has been, at least last week, it was having some pretty good green days within the first like 20, 30 minutes.
Gotcha. Alrighty. And then we have Square saying, good morning. Can you check out LMT? Absolutely. So Lockheed Martin, this one has been moving up with all of the tensions we've had with Russia and Ukraine. Lockheed Martin is a defense stock, and it should do well with unfortunately, it should do well with any war. So that's interesting. But either way, I mean, the stock has been doing pretty well over the past couple months. They're a pretty solid company. They're a pretty strong company. They've been around for a while. They've been consolidating over the past couple of years, but like on like a max weekly chart, you can see that they're pretty consistent.
Yeah, you're right. That max weekly chart is pretty telling for Lockheed Martin. And, Lockheed Martin and Boeing used to be pretty close with their movement back in the day. And we can see Boeing and Lockheed both have been like exploding up the past couple of years. I know Boeing fell off really hard with COVID because they had problems with their jets and stuff like that. And they're more of in the public sector than Lockheed is. And I think that gives Lockheed some safety. Like when we look at them for maybe like a longer term investment, they're going to be fairly safe. They generally don't tank off too much. Like when they do, of course, obviously they fall off a little bit, but nothing crazy like we see with some of these stocks falling down. And I know Lockheed pays a decent dividend too. So I like them for the long term, Mike. It's going to be tough to play them in the short term just with how they move. But with all the tensions, I mean, it could be a pretty good play. And like you said, the defense stocks do pretty well with war news going on. So like Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Boeing, and there's a lot more stocks out there that deal with defense. But I know Northrop Grumman, I can't remember their exact ticker, but
NOC.
I know they're, what is it?
NOC.
NOC, yeah. I know Northrop is pretty big too, and you can see they've been kind of moving back to the upside also. But yeah, I mean, I love these companies for the long term, Mike, and I know it sucks. Like I'm trying to not, say anything too bad here, but like kind of like what you said, these stocks do well with war, which is, good news for them, but bad news for obviously like the world.
Yeah, and then like another one is RTX, which is Raytheon, which has been moving up too. So they all kind of move together. So keep that on your radar. But so far they've been looking pretty good over the past couple months. We also have George mentioning Zillow, Tom. So Z, he said Z testing the highs from earnings. Yeah, Z's been looking pretty good, and I've seen so much flow go into this one lately. I saw like millions flowing into calls with this one, and the calls had some time too. So that's always good to see. Their earnings are making the stock pop. Redfin's also running up because of it. But yeah, I mean, it's been taking a beating because of their like house flipping disaster. But it looks like they're trying to recover back up.
Yeah, they are. They have a long way to go, but I mean, they are coming up in a pretty good way here, and it only took a couple of days to kind of like get that hype back. So hopefully they start to fill this big gap on the daily chart here. I know that they gap down between like $75 and like $85. So we'll have to see if that gap can eventually get filled. But you're right. I mean, Redfin has been on my radar, Mike, because I know that they're reporting earnings later this week on February 17th. And as we look at this, I mean, this stock could start recovering up in a pretty major way if their earnings go well, kind of like what we saw happen with Zillow. They had a pretty big pop to the upside. So hopefully Redfin comes in with some good numbers and maybe a good outlook, so then they can start to get a nice pop too.
Yeah, that'd be nice, especially that outlook. It seems like over the past couple of quarters, the outlook's a lot of times more important than the actual earnings release, or at least that's how the market treats it. So that's interesting. But well, with the next comment, we had JD mentioning TWLO. Let's see, Twilio. Twilio is looking pretty good so far. It's up like 2.5%. It's holding its ground pretty well. It's been pretty rough over the past couple months, but again, it is holding its ground, which is great to see.
Yeah, it's holding, which is good. If it starts to fall below maybe the low of where it's been the past few weeks, like if we look at the 180-day 1-hour chart, like if they start to fall below like 172.61 or something, it might start to sell off in the shorter term again. But as of right now, it is holding its ground very well, and I see a big support around 180. So hopefully we just keep holding, and we've been seeing lots of consolidation lately. So hopefully this consolidation is showing that there might be some pretty good supports forming, and maybe the buyers are coming in, and we'll start to see the stock start to come back, especially after the way this one's been beaten down. It's just been following along like with Zoom and just like the rest of the growth stocks.
Yeah. Tom, how about we check back in with Peloton? We haven't looked at this one in a couple days. It's down like 5%, and it was looking pretty good like last week, I guess. But yeah, it is coming back down. Peloton does have some problems it has to deal with, but I don't know. I figured I'd bring it up because we didn't cover it in a couple days.
Yeah, you're right. It is moving back down in a pretty good way here. It's actually kind of falling below a major level here. $34 has been a pretty big support the past couple days, but even over the past couple weeks, it's been like a pretty good resistance slash support. So yeah, I mean, looking tough today. It just keeps selling off. And personally, I think I could see this one keep going down today, maybe down towards like $32 or something like that. But I know they had that great news last week, Mike. They came out with their earnings, which was great, but better than that, they had that possible deal with or the rumors with Amazon, and then also Nike and Apple were possibly looking at acquiring Peloton. So I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll have to just wait for those rumors to come back, because I feel like this stock could definitely keep going up, but we need like a good deal to go through or something like that. And if it doesn't, I mean, who knows? Maybe the stock will keep going down.
Yeah. All right, Tom. Well, do you have any last-minute plays before we wrap up today's stream?
Yeah, I guess let's just go check back in on the commodities one last time before we call it quits here. Slash CL is starting to come back up a little bit. We're right around $93, right around even. So the oil market's getting volatile. Let's go see gold and silver. It looks like GLD actually continued to run up here. It's starting to break out in a little bit of a major way. So maybe we'll see GLD keep running up today. I know that the tensions have been terrible, and GLD had a great move on Friday. So maybe we'll see that momentum kind of keep up here. But besides those commodities, I mean, the main stocks that were moving earlier were like Rivian, Lucid, and stocks like that. And it looks like they're starting to slow down a little bit for now. So I don't know, Mike. I mean, it's going to be a tough day in the market. It's been all over the place so far today, very flat. Kind of like what we saw on Friday at market open. The market was just very flat before selling off with that bad news in the middle of the day. So we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on CNBC, and we'll be looking out like a hawk for some bad news to drop, because with all the stuff going on, I mean, we're just one apparently we're just one tank crossing the border away from like a real war going on. So hopefully everything stays calm.
Not good. But again, thank you guys so much for joining today's stream. Before we close it, I just want to personally thank everyone for joining. So we're going to start off with Alex. Thank you so much, Alex. I'm Fierce, Hunter, George, Keisha, Vicky, Spacely, Jay, Sam, Sean, Mike, Mason, Neighbor. Let's see, we got Vicky, Raymond, Chris, Tom, Square, Keisha, J Deep, and I think that's everyone. So thank you guys so much for joining. We really appreciate all of you. Hopefully the market really pops back up, because it has been a non-stop like pinball machine, back and forth. So it's been all over the place. Thanks Ravi and Head for joining as well. But again, thank you guys so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.